For Sunday, September 17th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda this week, of course, her name was Irma. In the city, some credit woes for a major company, and from City Hall, a lot of money to the west side for the new stadium. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you'll be with us on this Sunday. It is a dry, sunny Sunday. We should make that point. What a week it's been. A storm, really, if you think about it, a storm that was large enough to not only envelop the entire state of Florida, both sides of it, but to cause damage from Key West to North Carolina.
Yeah.
I've never envisioned one that big. And so many of our viewers and so many of us, not me, fortunately, were out of power. However, I think it was a Herculean effort by federal, state, and local authorities, and most of all the power companies, to restore service, except for you.
Right. It's a Friday morning. I was out, but there was actually a Florida power team in my neighborhood in Sandy Springs. But let me just say this about Georgia Power. To mention one utility, you had 1 million outages when the storm hit. And then as of Friday morning, you had an amazing number, only 57,000. And I think that is, you talk about a Herculean effort. Well, so I have to praise them especially. And these guys were dead tired that I talked to. They've been working almost 24/7.
Well, and to their credit, they getting their regular updates. They had promised that 95% of the service in their customers in the state would be restored by Sunday night. They moved that up 24 hours.
Right.
And they said that by last night, 95% of the state would have been restored. I really think that's an amazing effort, and I think the lesson of Katrina to public officials was, you don't take anything for granted ever again.
And
if you
be prepared in advance too. Be ready.
That's it, and exactly. And I think the pre-positioning of assets, clearly that was taking place in Florida.
Right.
You could see it, trucks rolling in when highways were essentially empty. They were bringing in supplies in advance. Of course, it's a horrid story, but a couple of strange things. Phil, you had an item on your site.
Insider advantage.
That Cobb County was essentially spared.
It was amazing.
And yet I was talking to people saying, why did DeKalb get hit so hard, Jeff?
I don't know why DeKalb got hit so hard. My power was out for a couple of days. I know some people whose power is still out.
Right, and they didn't even start school again.
Well, there were a lot of tree issues.
It's 2017, and power company is asking ratepayers to pay upwards of $20 billion for a nuclear power plant. Can we not upgrade our electrical system and begin burying these lines, particularly in areas where we have millions of trees, right? And we know storms are coming. We know we have climate change. We know we're going to have
That's an expensive proposition to do underground
It's an
lines.
expensive proposition
to fix it.
To pay $20 billion for a nuclear power plant.
Well,
I think
you're
that
mixing apples and
we're
oranges.
talking, no,
I think
because we got ratepayers.
We
have ratepayers who I think are willing to make the investment in some 21st century technology to bury these lines. We're burying lines anyway. We're almost halfway there. As you build new communities and new subdivisions, all of those are buried lines. All you got to do is start doing this with some of these trunks. And it seems to me that we could get there. That's all.
Well,
it's just a thought.
Let me just respond.
I want to make Georgia Power the hero this week. I think they're the hero of the week.
You know, the two words that are key are electrical reliability. And Jeff, to your point, that's why you're having the nuclear clean and safe nuclear power
I'm not
being done,
opposed to it.
because you're going to have reliability in the next 80 years.
I'm not opposed to it, Phil. All I'm saying is that there is an investment there, a massive investment being made there. This, too, would be a massive investment. It would take years, decades, possibly, but we could start working toward it.
Well, let me say this about DeKalb. I gave it a lot of thought, because the county was by far the worst hit. I mean, at one point, you had 62 DeKalb schools without power. That's kind of shocking.
It's a lot of it is the tree problem.
And I think it's a fairly simple thing, and maybe experts will correct me, but I think DeKalb is an old growth forest, the county, the whole county.
Right.
With lots of older housing stock. It was the first big suburban residential county in the metro area, right? Now, Fulton County should be the same way, but for some reason, the combination in DeKalb of old growth and older homes.
And also the way the storm blew in.
Yeah, made it look more difficult. I want to just say that, in my eyes, the heroes of this whole thing were Governor Rick Scott in Florida, Governor Deal in Georgia, the state's emergency management agencies, and Georgia Power.
They did a great job, and I'm
And
not
other
knocking
power.
that
I'm
at
using
all. All I'm
Georgia Power
saying is that over time we
Right.
can begin to address this problem. You know, we're not having any interruption, obviously, in natural gas lines or, you know, other lines that are buried when these kinds of storms blow through.
Let me mention, Dick, you talk about some lessons learned. I know in the city of Sandy Springs, we learned some lessons, and perhaps elsewhere around the state, and that is we ran out of signs saying road blocked, which was very tricky. You had to kind of put up yellow tape.
Really?
And one of the problems was, this is bad, people were just ignoring them, going
Go through anyway.
where roads were blocked. They were hampering crews, and this is a lesson that I think communities around the state, I don't know how widespread this was, but it was a problem in Sandy Springs.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. And of course, it makes sense. If you
Right.
think about it, how many road closed signs do you need in a city?
Well, on the near west side, we were very fortunate. We did not lose our power or anything, and usually our power goes out, you know, if the sun goes down.
Well, so, all right, so I've named my heroes. Now, do we have any goats? Do we have any Michael Brown? Remember him, the FEMA director under Katrina? We don't have that.
No.
We also don't have many positive news stories about how well the Trump administration responded.
Well, and they did respond very well, and that's a good point. And it's the news media again is slanted.
So
Oh, I
if
disagree
we're
with
looking
that.
for goats,
Yeah.
how about our own Equifax,
Oh, boy.
our own homegrown company, with this breach of how many?
143 million.
143
Half of
million
the people, adults in the country
shocking.
or something crazy.
financial accounts
Right.
breached.
Well, the other half are children.
Right.
And I don't know what to say about it.
Well, here's Dick, what I would say, and I would urge all of the viewers to take this very seriously. I would immediately get online and get a credit freeze. And that is the big
But
recommendation.
Equifax should pay for that, correct?
Right.
Well, you have to pay $3.
But shouldn't in this instance,
That's what
shouldn't
they're
Equifax
saying.
waive that charge?
Well, they ought to if they had
should.
a,
They're
if
still
they had a good
deliberating
They
on
CEO.
should
that.
waive all charges. And here's the problem with this breach, I think, as opposed to all the other breaches, is, you know, some of the big retailers and others whose data has been breached, they're not there to protect your privacy. Equifax is. That's how
That's
they
what
that's
their-
how they
that's their
brand
reason for
themselves.
being, right?
That's their reason for being, other than obviously to provide credit reporting and those other services. But they sell themselves to the public as we're here to protect your privacy and to prevent, right, this kind of identity fraud. And here they are, breached, hacked, when that should be the last thing that should happen with
And they're
with
blaming
Equifax.
it, as you know, they're blaming it on
On
the
some
software
software.
company, but that's
And the
beside
software
the point.
company is saying they sent them the fix for it months ago and they didn't use it.
Exactly, and
And-
the CEOs, Alexis, didn't tell the people.
Right. They
And
delayed letting people
they
know
had
that's
3 to
what
4
happened.
weeks knowledge of the
Right.
breach before they became public. And when they did go public, their response
It's
was
not-
not exactly precise, and it was very muddled, allowing guys like former Governor Roy Barnes to get in there and take the headline
do that
with that class action
Well,
lawsuit.
exactly
and
right.
I think you might see a congressional probe when
Yeah,
this
they're
is
Well, you
calling
see a
for,
state
calling
legislative
for,
probe as well.
testimony too.
All right, we got to get out. When we come back, really, we're going to stay kind of on a positive news theme for the next few minutes. The new stadium downtown is open, and people love it, and money's being spread around, and all is good. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
So here we were being all uncharacteristically positive about the response to Hurricane Irma, and we said there were no goats, no villains. And then I just remembered that Buddy Carter, the congressman from Savannah, got spanked for going to the Georgia-Notre Dame game in South Bend.
right when the storm hit.
What is he going to do if he stays, right? I mean, why not?
He evacuated.
And Congressman,
He did what he was told.
he did what the
I'm
governor
gonna
told him to
defend
do.
the
Yes,
congressman.
there you go. And Congressman Barry Loudermilk and his wife were injured in a car crash, unrelated, but leaving Nashville. And I hope they're
doing well.
I hope they're both
Recovered.
doing well. So, positive news: the new stadium has officially opened. Tonight, the roof might be open when the Falcons entertain the Green Bay Packers on a nationally televised ball game. You all been there, Jeff, you in particular. Everything I see I haven't been there yet, but everything I see on TV is spectacular. It's just spectacular.
Well, that's a good
And
word.
people seem to be having a bang-up time.
It's my first impressions were it didn't look like $1.5 billion. Now it does. It looks like that and more. It's just a fantastic facility. Everything about it is just first rate. The field, the crowds, the people, the clubs, the fact that you can get to any level.
Are they getting in and out on Marta okay?
People are getting in and out on Marta. Traffic is flowing in, and the way that they're handling these huge crowds
It's amazing.
is working really well over there on Northside Drive and all around the stadium.
I can speak to the outside because I go
There's
home
one
that
thing
way,
that I
and
think
it is
you
awesome.
might agree with. You have to adjust to the giant halo video board that's up on top, because you want to look at that, and yet you want to look at still the teams
What's on the
playing on the
field.
field. So
yeah,
I found
you're
myself going
you're
up
doing
and down.
a lot of both, and I know that Jake in particular needs to get to a soccer game because you're a big soccer fan, and so everybody's standing during the game, but you can sit and look at that halo and see probably better than you could on the field.
You know, I'm not even sure I'm a soccer fan. I'm an Atlanta United fan.
There you go.
I just love
That's
this
even
team.
better.
I love this team.
Yeah.
Can I
Alexis,
say one other thing too about the street, MLK? You know, there was a lot of talk and angst about it being closed and blocked with the new stadium, but they did some jerry-rigging and rig-a-rig of the streets, and it goes through now, and so you can go straight down MLK and go around the street and just keep going west. So there's access from downtown to the west side.
Let me stay with you on that same theme, because this week the mayor, Kasim Reed, announced that he was kicking in $17 million, well, he and city entities are kicking in $17 million to the West Side Improvement Fund. Arthur Blank's foundation doing $15 million. It never worked before. Is this something that's promising? Will it actually create jobs and clean up some pretty ravaged neighborhoods?
I hope so. I remain hopeful on that. And the other thing that's happening, the Mims Park that they're going to redo on that same area, part of town, and also the church, Friendship Baptist Church. Built their church, which is about 2 blocks away, but you can see the shadow of the stadium in the church. And they have another $30 million left over that they're going to do a mixed-use development right across from the stadium. So it's going to be a lot of activity.
They've done a great job engaging the community over there. I was at the Westside Future Fund meeting Friday morning. You've got a lot of community involvement. There are a lot of business, civic involvement, everybody coming together to make sure that, yes, you're right. We've seen this before. We saw it with the Atlanta Project and so many others. But John Ammon, I think, is doing a great job over there at the Westside Future Fund, bringing all of these disparate groups together. So I do think that they're going to make a difference. You know what I'm
thinking about? I'm thinking about Bill Clinton when he was president and Bill Campbell when he was mayor, and we had those opportunity zones. And they became just a giant sucking sound of taxpayer money going nowhere.
And I think that part of the problem there was that they were so top down, right? And that they really didn't engage communities to the extent that they should have. This is a smaller, more focused effort with all hands on deck. And I think that it's got a great opportunity.
And I do like to, we mentioned Arthur Blank and his family foundation. I like to see these charitable foundations, that there's plenty of them in the state of Georgia and in the city of Atlanta, stepping up like this.
Right, and that's what they're doing, I think. And like I said, I live in 30314, which is one of the neighborhood zones that's part of that redevelopment area.
Really?
So I'm real excited because my house now is coming back in terms of the property values.
I never thought it declined. It's your house after all.
Yeah, but it was the Great Recession killed everybody.
All right, what's going on with this McIver case? Tex McIver, the Atlanta attorney, accused of shooting his wife, which I guess he did. He's accused of homicide is the point. And I can't follow it, Phil. The prosecutor seems just determined to keep him behind bars.
Right, you're talking about Fulton County DA Paul Howard, and of course the McIver trial is coming up in late October. But the latest wrinkle is the feud that's developed between Fulton County Sheriff Ted Jackson and DA Howard, and it has to do with, going back to the McIver case, monitoring phone calls in the jail. McIver was moved from downtown up to Alpharetta And Howard was upset because they weren't totally monitoring the phone calls, and of course MacIver's accused of using phone calls to try to influence people on the case. And so Ted Jackson has apparently retaliated. Alexis, you and I have followed this,
right,
and said, you know, the DA can't park at his parking spot anymore, and that he's going to review the whole call process. And right now, which is a public safety factor, they can't be monitoring a lot of the calls like they were right up until mid-August.
Well, yeah.
And the Atlanta police say they need to.
Yeah, the police say they need to
yeah.
get the same access. But I think the sheriff is saying he needs to review the entire operation of how they're doing that, because they had not really considered how some calls are monitored, some not, and so they're looking at the whole thing. And I think they're saying there's no retaliation for the DA trying to do whatever he was trying to do with MacIver, but it goes back to that.
We got to get out one other last local news item of note. I think Tom Witz, Jeff's favorite mayor, the mayor of Snellville. Everybody's somebody in Snellville, and we of course said last week that he was indicted, and now we learn that the governor will appoint a 3-person panel to decide if he should be suspended from office. Do you think?
You think?
66 counts, 65 felonies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Likely.
So when we come back, we'll discuss some more contentious matters. We'll begin with the impact of the Dreamer conversations on our state of Georgia. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And I'm going to cross the panel up real quickly. Before we go to this immigration issue, we didn't talk about the Atlanta mayor's race. I'm struck by the fact that there doesn't seem to be a lot happening. Am I wrong?
Oh, you're wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
That's
wrong.
right.
There are forums. There are forums all
the
over town, Dick. In fact, we were just discussing during the break.
We're working hard.
One forum where I will say, I thought Mary Norwood, one of the leading front runner right now, handled herself well. She was asked a loaded question on racial profiling, and she said, of course, there's racial profiling that does unfortunately go on, but she defended the Atlanta Police Department because I don't believe they have any policy.
Actually, at that forum, they had a card to hold up. Do you think racial profiling occurs in the city of Atlanta? Every single candidate said yes, except for Mary Norwood,
they didn't say
who wouldn't
Atlanta.
hold up her sign at all, and she wanted to explain. But you had a yes or no answer, and she wouldn't say yes that racial profiling.
But it didn't say
exists.
Atlanta.
No. Then, given a second
chance,
chance,
she said yes.
she put up her yes sign, but did so
And
obviously
had to explain
reluctantly.
herself. Well, the moderator, it was a terrible.
But it wasn't anything
moderator.
that you explain.
How do you not racial profile?
You put up your sign, yes or no. How you not racial profile?
You criminally profile.
You can see whether somebody is
Criminally profile.
So the officer
based on-
arrives at the scene of a crime and he says to the witness, what'd the guy look like? What's the first thing the guy's going to say? Well, there's a white guy, there's a black guy.
Exactly right. I mean, what does it say
Is
on
that
your driver's
racial profiling?
license? Is it says a W or a B or
They call
something?
it criminal profiling.
Oh boy.
It's a non-issue, shouldn't even be part of the public discussion.
But I will say this, I'm sure another poll is going to come out pretty soon, and the candidates, Dick, are all over town, and
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're working hard.
they are working hard.
Yeah, and I think Caesar picked up another union endorsement from the film industry.
Right.
And so he's really racking all
Caesar
those
Mitchell.
up. Caesar
Now,
Mitchell.
while President Trump does what he does, which is confounding and interesting and astonishing
And
all at once.
bipartisan.
Before I get to that, though, there is legislation going on. The House passed a budget this week. It doesn't get coverage, but if you talk to members of the delegation, you'll see that some meaningful legislation was passed, Bill.
Right.
And also, you've got Senators Isaacson and Perdue heavily involved in trying to protect the J-STARS program.
Right.
Those are big planes that are supposed to be redone.
That's right. We're trying to rebuild our military, no thanks to the Obama administration, and that's
no
going
thanks
on.
to the, what did they call that thing where you couldn't do anything, where they froze all the federal spending? What was it called? Come on.
Sequestration.
Sequestration,
Yeah,
right. And that was the
rebuilding.
Republicans did that.
No, that was because of Obama. They had no choice.
Because you didn't want
But
Obama
anyhow,
to do anything.
Well,
that was why.
It was a big week for you, Alexis, because Medicare for All got
Woohoo!
introduced.
Yes, sir.
Bernie Sanders, socialism,
Bernie
you
Sanders,
ought to be
but
happy.
it shows,
Social democracy, that's
the
what we are.
Democratic Party has gone socialist.
No,
if
it
you
doesn't.
have
It
15
shows that-
U.S.
Wait a
senators
minute, you said Bernie Sanders
introduced the bill with the support of
that was his
15
proposal.
Democrats in
with the
US
support of
Senate.
15. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly
15.
right. Yeah, but not
which
all
shows the party has pretty much gone the socialist way. What I would argue is
Just like Medicare, huh?
that the last election, though Hillary was the
whole country has
nominee,
gone socialist.
Bernie Sanders won. The party is now his.
Let's
and it's
let's explain what he proposed. He wants to incredibly expand Medicare
for
to every
everybody.
person, which we don't have. We already have what 20 trillion,
Yeah,
20
it's just,
trillion
it just
in
all
debt.
it requires is
and
a
you
little,
always think
all it
money
requires,
grows on trees.
It does. Oh, they print it up in D.C. All you have to do is tweak a little bit of what's going on.
That's a tweak. We need to cut.
With Medicare, everybody has a supplemental insurance, and they and so
you
that's
would
all you do.
surely,
Everybody
you would
have
surely
Medicare
destroy
Plus.
the republic.
Heck no.
The reason
and it's
countries
like public,
fail
it's like
is
public
debt.
education. You don't want public
so
education
you just
either,
said something rather blithely. Everybody would have supplemental insurance. Who pays for that?
The people, yourself, like you do now.
Okay, I want to make sure that,
with
yes.
people who have Medicare.
As I do.
And I
believe
do
you
too.
do too.
You
yes.
pay for the supplemental.
for
You
the
don't pay for the
supplemental.
Medicare.
Well, I paid for it
we
already.
pay
I
for
paid into it.
Into
You
it
paid
as you
into
were
it.
going along.
I paid the Medicare tax.
And has it been a good investment for
Do
you?
you just pay your
Absolutely.
credit? Did you just put on
You
your
bet.
credit card anything you want and don't care about it?
I put it on there and then I pay the bill.
Well, then who's going to pay it? That's huge. Bernie Sanders, socialist,
No, it's
command
like
and
it-
control.
but
You know who's a
It's-
socialist, Phil? You are.
Oh, that's
because you
absurd.
favor Medicare, you favor
That's
Medicaid,
crazy.
And
you favor
the
Social
VA
Security.
and the
Don't tell me you don't already have a
healthcare
social
for
that you
veterans.
have
pay
a
into it.
socialist state.
You pay into
and
it.
you
favor-
support it. Don't
and
you support Social
and
Security?
And
pay
you
into
support
it.
public education
You
too,
support
don't you?
Social Security.
Of course I do.
You support
Most we do.
Medicaid.
But I think everyone's
You
gonna
support
laugh at you.
Medicare.
I think everybody's going to laugh at
We
you.
pay into those
We
things.
pay. He didn't
Well,
want to
we-
know
Those
Those
about
are not
that.
freebies.
Yeah.
We pay into
you
You
those
can
things.
pay
pay
into it.
taxes.
Who's going to pay for this socialistic plan where everybody gets Medicare? It's
We didn't
insane.
even.
pay
It's
for it.
funny.
You pay
I'm
for it
sorry.
just like you do
We
now.
didn't even get to President Trump's decision to join with the Democrats in protecting the Dreamers.
Well, DACA, the Deferred Action Childhood Arrival.
Right.
Which is also known as the Dreamers.
But let me say this. This is interesting. I actually called a friend of mine up in the White House Friday morning, and this is called negotiation. What the Republicans are saying is, well, it still has got a process going through Congress. And then if you read on Friday morning's headlines, Trump said, I didn't say anything to, as he calls Chuck and Nancy, the Democrat leaders, about a path to citizenship or the work permits have
That's 'cause he doesn't
stopped.
read.
Well, here's what's
Here's
happened.
what's in the act.
The work permits, these DACA people get work permits. They're competing with Americans. The work permits have stopped, and that's not going to be changed.
Well, but
so
I-
we're still going to see how the negotiation.
I still think a majority of Americans understand that the Dreamers themselves, who were brought here by their illegal
Parents.
alien parents, the Dreamers did not commit a crime.
No,
Thank you.
this is where the
Exactly.
deal.
I think that
this is where the deal is going to be
Trump
cut.
understands that too.
Well, yeah,
I
and I
think
think
he
they're going
does.
to cut a
Yes, he
deal.
does.
I think they're going to cut a deal.
And they're going to get a path to citizenship too.
Well, that's the kicker. I don't think
got
they
to.
will. I don't think they will.
Oh,
I think they'll
please.
have work visas
How-
and they'll have
how
green
If the
cards.
Democrats are
Stupid is
They'll have
involved in
green
the deal,
cards. I know why you want them to be citizens. You want them to
Absolutely.
vote
Vote.
Democrat.
Yeah.
Well, we want them to be able to
All right, we
vote
gotta
and
get
to
out.
be
We
full
gotta get out.
citizenship participation, unlike the way they wanted. They didn't want black people to be
What we,
citizens
that's
either.
ridiculous.
what we really know
Sure.
is that he's willing to work with Democrats. It's a good thing. Chuck
It's a deal.
Schumer leaves dinner at the White House and he says he likes us.
that was amazing.
Oh, at least he likes me. That's what he said.
He likes them that week.
When we come back, we will go for winners and losers aplenty. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And time's wasting, so we'll get right to it. Maybe we'll have to continue on Facebook. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I think the winners, as we talked about, is Governor Deal, the first responders, Georgia Power, President Trump, everybody that helped get us through the storm. I'm going to do a little plug for the magazine I publish, James Magazine. We did our list of top lobbyist rankings under the Gold Dome, and it was a vote, and the top business association that was voted on was the Metro Atlanta Chamber. The top government affairs firm, law firm, was Denton's, and the non-law firm was Georgia Link. The top male lobbyist was Pete Robinson of Troutman Sanders, and Brandy Bazemore was the top female lobbyist. So there you go. Those
All
are the
right.
folks you go to.
Jeffrey?
Last week we talked a little bit about Keith Parker leaving
Yeah.
MARTA and in his new role over at
Goodwill.
Industries.
And had a conversation with him about it. He wanted to make sure that we all knew his real reasons for leaving. First, his family, and second is his passion for the job that they're doing. He says that they're creating 25,000 jobs a year for some of the people who are hardest to employ. And his daughter is going to be attending the University of Georgia, so he wants to stay in town. So good luck to Keith Parker over there at Goodwill.
I hope she's got a Hope Scholarship. Well, actually,
I'm
the money
sure
is
that-
being paid.
I'm sure that she has a
All right,
scholarship.
Alexis.
All right, the Hosea Williams mural was dedicated this week over at Studioplex near Auburn Avenue, and it's really a sight to see. It's got neon on it, so everybody should go ride by and see that, to the historic icon, civil rights icon, Hosea Williams.
All right,
Stop.
and a couple of quick things. How about J.J. Watt of the Houston football team? On social media, that all-defensive player raised $31 million. Earlier this week, all the networks combined did a telethon with a bunch of global warming nuts, and they raised $44 million. I'll take the $31 million from J.J. Watt single-handedly, okay? And then finally, Alex Hawkins, one of the greatest characters in Atlanta Falcons history, has died at the age of 80. He was nicknamed Captain Outrageous. And well, maybe I'll put something on Facebook about his best time. See you next week.
You know who else died? It was Tommy Irma.